Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today for the Spire Systems webinar, What to Consider When Selecting a New Accounting and Business Management Software for Your Business, and of course, an introduction to Spire itself. We're going to get the show rolling. Many of you have already signed in and are there with us. I will just ask you if you can raise your hand to make sure that you can see and hear us, please. There's a little hand there in your GoToWebinar panel. Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Cindy. That's great. I can definitely go ahead now and lower your hands. So for the sake of time, let's get going. First of all, a few introductions. My name is Katie Griffin. I'm the Director of Business Development here at Spire. I've been with Spire for just over 2 years, but have worked in the accounting software industry for 20 years at this point. So very happy to be joining you here today with my good friend and colleague, Warren Flett, who is our product information specialist here at Spire Systems. And Warren will be the one diving into the program to show you all the wonderful things that Spire does. Warren, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous. Katie, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. I've had coffee. The dog's been walked. I'm ready to roll. So we're on our way here. We'll just quickly go through the agenda, what we're going to be covering for you today, ladies and gentlemen. So who, what, where, and how. So who we are, where Spire lives, how Spire works, what Spire is, and then we'll dive right into the demonstration where Warren will be showing you all the lovely things that you can do in Spire. And then I'll touch a bit about how you want to go about considering a new software. There's four main pillars, if you will, that I always try to cover in my conversations with people who are shopping for software. So hopefully that'll guide you a little bit about some of the things you need to think about. And you'll walk away with a idea of what a Spire investment will look like for you before we end our session here today. So I'll also just make mention that if you do have questions throughout today's webinar, you can put them in the chat. We won't be answering them live, but we will be emailing you back with answers to your specific questions. We're happy to do that. But again, for the sake of time, we won't have time to open up the floor to answer questions. So who we are. Our head office is based in Langley, BC. We're a Canadian-based company. Our staff is mostly located in Langley, BC. Some of us work remotely, and we do get together a few times a year so that the whole team can collaborate face-to-face and spend that quality time together. Spire was founded by two industry veterans, Al Romaine, who's our Chief Executive Officer, and Peter Reimer, who's our Chief Operating Officer. And together they lead a team of progressive and dedicated and just amazing people that I get the chance to work with on a daily basis. I really have to, I'm not just saying that, I really do enjoy working with my colleagues, people like Warren and on the dev team and our office assistant and even the accounting department, believe it or not. Worth mentioning that we use Spire here at Spire. You won't find that in a lot of other software development companies. So again, a strong team. Spire is sold and supported through our very valuable and respected channel of authorized and certified Spire partners. These are professionals in the accounting software industry that need to acquire and maintain their Spire accreditation. They take part in annual events to maintain their Spire knowledge. And they're the ones who help bring Spire to you, the public. They're the ones who will work with you to implement the product. They're the ones who will be there to support you throughout the product. And in return, we are there to support the channel. So these are a very important part of our network. If I have any partners online today, hello to you all, and thanks for joining us as well. You know, what is it about us that makes us a little bit different? I mean, one, yes, Canadian company, most big publishers are not Canadian companies, but we do strive to continue to be a contemporary solution. We do maintain the product. It is constantly being developed. So our clients do see new features in Spire. They do see functionalities that are added that stay competitive both in the accounting software industry and in the industries that we serve. And we really do strive to have a very strong level of customer service. And so if you're here in this webinar today, you either are shopping for a new accounting and business management solution, or maybe you've just started Inspire, or maybe you're a professional advisor looking to see how the solution can help. But if any of these bullet points on your screen sound familiar, most people who've come to Spire either have come from an antiquated solution. Spire has a history of having worked with another product that no longer is being developed but still around. But so we've seen, businesses come to us from antiquated and old solutions or custom solutions that were built for them once upon a time, and that developer is no longer there to maintain that solution. Sometimes clients are needing better user controls. If you're a micro business and you're one person, you know who owes you money, you know who you owe money to. But as you grow and you add people to your various departments, it's hard to maintain that. So managing user controls is obviously very important. A lot of times businesses are forced to rely on Excel. Warren, you know that Excel is still the most popular accounting software in the world. It's really not an accounting software, but a fantastic tool. However, managing inventory and managing a chart of accounts and managing customer lists on a variety of spreadsheets is just not feasible or doable. And the truth is while we'll always be dependent on Excel, it hinders productivity significantly if you're using it beyond what it's meant to be used for. A lot of times businesses are coming to us because they have siloed applications. They're running 3 or 4 different programs to manage a variety of their needs, and none of these are actually speaking to each other. So nothing is integrated, or integration nightmares where these connections are being broken often enough, or causing data integrity issues. So these obstacles are, some of these obstacles are where we're seeing businesses come to us, or if they're outgrowing their entry level packages. Something like QuickBooks is a fantastic software and serves a lot of businesses really well, but at some point it starts to have some capacity issues in terms of managing inventory or being able to transfer inventory from one warehouse to another. And so these are some of the reasons. And if any of this sounds familiar to you folks, then you're in the right place today. And so what do our clients look like? Our clients are predominantly in the wholesale distribution, light manufacturing, and service-based businesses. Now, none of these are mutually exclusive. Some clients do all three. They make the product, they sell the product, and they service the product. And so if that's any of you, we have a solution for you. We see a lot of businesses in the medical equipment field, in the food distribution and manufacturing, HVAC, office equipment, small construction businesses as well, and a variety of other ones. We've recently seen an uptick in telecommunications businesses as well. And so we're not industry specific, folks, but we do play really well in specific industries. And I think what really just resonates with everyone in the Spire world is that they've all come to us looking for a solution that isn't going to break the bank. Where do we sit in the industry? There is a huge gap in the mid-market accounting software world. You'll see entry-level packages, such as some of the ones that you see here on your screen, again, that have served businesses really well for a long time. But again, at some point, either because it's siloed applications or you're needing more feature functionality, you're left with looking at some of the much larger packages that creep up into that ERP, that enterprise resource planning space, that can often cost in the tens of thousands of dollars, which really just is not manageable or feasible for that growing business that's looking to have a solution that is a scalable solution. And so Spire is uniquely positioned in the marketplace, offering a lot of functionality for a very affordable price. Just the right amount of user autonomy, with some help from, again, our certified consultants as well. There's a lot of training resources that are available. So we do offer that, again, user autonomy that you will see at some level in the entry-level products. But we do offer that level of sophistication that the ERP world has to offer you. Another thing that is unique about Spire is that most of the solutions out there are pushing you towards one particular model, forcing you to absolutely be in the cloud or absolutely have subscription based costs associated to running their software. And so in the Spire world, we understand that not everybody purchases software the same way or uses software the same way. And this is fairly unique, folks. So in the Spire world, you can have Spire on premise. This is a traditional implementation style where the license of your software is sitting on your server itself, and your computers, your workstations are patched into your network. And again, very classic implementation style. We do offer as well cloud hosting, and cloud hosting is different than browser-based cloud. So this is where we will take your Spire license, host it in a private environment. You are not sharing this space with any other company, but it gives you that functionality of being able to work from anytime, anywhere. Okay. And then we do also have the browser-based applications. And this is where you have some mobile access, really useful for those who have road warriors, if you will, or salespeople on the road. And another unique thing about Spire is that this browser-based application is available to you as long as you maintain your Spire software assurance. Every year, there's software assurance to help maintain your product. We release new versions, we release fixes, and we also include the browser-based applications in your Spire license as long as your software assurance is maintained. I will talk about that a little bit further. So again, what I want you to understand is that in terms of where your Spire lives, you have options. You also have the option to purchase Spire outright. Again, we're not forcing anybody towards a subscription model. Some businesses have the capital to go ahead and purchase and own their Spire license and its users and just maintain their software assurance on an annual basis. Others, often those that don't necessarily have the investment to put up front, may look at a subscription option. And this is where you can use Spire on a month-to-month basis with your payments. Those payments are automatically deducted from your bank account with your permission, of course. And in that is your software assurance that's included. So you don't have another fee at the end of the year. And so I will touch a bit about what that looks like in terms of an investment as we move forward. But what I want you to walk away with, folks, is that you have options in the Spire world. You can have it cloud hosted, you can have it on premise, you can buy it, you can subscribe to it. And we even do work very closely with a financing company who will give you a preferred rate for your entire Spire project, not just the software, but the implementation associated with that. So you have options in the Spire world. I'm going to take a step back now because I know that you're all here to actually see what the program can do. So Warren, I'm going to ask for you to take over the screen here and share with our audience what we have to share about Spire today.
Wonderful. Let me just clean that up here. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Katie, so much. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy day to spend with us in order to investigate a little bit about Spire. And we don't have time to show absolutely everything, but we hope that we give you a really good flavor of some of the things that we can do throughout the Spire system. I just wanted to start on the login screen, just identify that you do have the opportunity of maintaining multiple companies. You're not limited to a single company for your license. If you are someone that has separate divisions or you are doing things that require different company access. When you first start into Spire, you can start to work right away. You can specify certain tasks to have due dates assigned to you or perhaps just to the company in general in order to be able to have checklists. Maybe there's something that you have to remember a call to make or a transaction to post or to check up on. So you can set these communications with due dates to pop up as soon as you start it on the screen. You can even launch that particular application and transaction or record or callback in order to do that process. And you can even mark those as completed if you've already done them. So perhaps the visit's already happened, so we can mark that as completed and knock it off the list. And then that won't appear the next time you log in. If you're in the accounting department and you perform recurring transactions, you've got that monthly phone bill or a utility bill, or maybe a journal entry that you do on a regular basis, or a recurring payment perhaps, you can also have these recurring transactions pop in as soon as you start the program. And you have the opportunity of viewing that or editing the amounts if it's a different amount, or you can just post that right off of the list and you can see that disappear. So these transactions that recur on a regular basis, you can make sure you don't forget those. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spend some time starting in the operational side of Spire and then work our way through to the accounting side. And we'll highlight a number of different features within Spire. One area where Spire is very strong is in the sales area, customer sales. And there's many different types of sales that you could potentially do in Spire, not just standard resale of products, but also you can do work orders if you're in the service industry. You can do repeating orders if you've got some sort of information that happens every month or every year. So you can set those to repeat on a schedule of your choice, or even quotes, and then those can be turned into orders later on. I'm just going to perform a particular standard order and go through some of these processes. When you first load in, there's lots of different information on many different tabs that you can maintain. When it comes time to loading in information, anywhere you see one of these magnifying glasses that identifies it says to find or search, certainly you could type in a customer code or an item code in order to search. But it's also possible to search records in other ways. Perhaps it's the company name or the item description, or maybe it's a contact or a phone number or a province or a state or city. You can search many different ways in order to look that information up. Many different places in Spire, you'll get opportunities to see these colorful banners in order to identify if there's an alert or a message that you need to be aware of. If there's something that you're doing an entry, making sure that you don't process a transaction that you shouldn't, you don't have to go back and remember everything. Spire will be able to prompt these things for you. You can even load that particular alert if there's any other extra information, and then close that off once you've finished. This particular, I wanted to search from area. You can have multiple contacts associated with customers and just load them up if you have a different person from the customer that is actually doing the purchase. What we're going to do now is to just load a few different types of items just to identify what kind of inventory you can potentially store in Spire. And I'm just going to start by loading a particular item, and you can search by the item code. That's one way. This particular item is associated with lot numbering, and Spire maintains lot numbers throughout the system if you need to do traces. And Spire also does keyboard entry so that you don't have to keep your hands on the mouse. You can just keep your hands on the keyboard. That's the most efficient way of doing data entry. What I'm going to do is just identify that in this particular case, there's 2 on hand for this particular item. So I'm going to actually pick 3. And you'll see that you can allocate lot numbers or serial numbers to stock that you're about to ship. And I'm going to purposely just allocate 2 at this time, and then the third one will be back ordered. Yeah, I know there's not quite enough yet. We'll have to do a purchase later on, and we'll show you that. So you have the opportunity of using your keyboard throughout entry, and you can also maintain lot numbering and serial numbers if you're doing tracing. If you have anything more about information you'd like to look about this item, perhaps to do with a price or a quantity on hand or outstanding purchases, you don't have to close this order and then go hunting for that item. You can just simply highlight it on the screen, and you can load that inventory item record directly from here. So you can search through the different tabs. You want to see the different pricing for units of measure. Here's the lot numbers that you have available. You can see all the different lot numbers that are currently outstanding or have been used in the past. You can even highlight a particular one to trace through those transactions. This is where it was produced. It was transferred to some other invoicing, returns, all those sorts of things if you want to trace those lots. And there's even reports to do that for you as well. So that's one different type of item. You can also search for items, as mentioned before, when that magnifying glass is by the description or other areas. I'm just going to pick another item. And something that you'll see right away is that the price is highlighted in green. And what that means is that this particular item is being given a special price by the customer. You can specify through something called a price matrix that if a certain customer buys this item or an item group, or maybe a particular customer group like wholesale purchasers, they get a special price. You'll see that in green so that the user who's doing this entry will know that something is very specific. Let's change that item quantity. Something else you can do with Spire with price matrix pricing is do something called promotions, where you can group items together, perhaps by a quantity, so that if you purchase a minimum quantity across a group of items, then the special pricing comes into play. So let me just pull in another item. And this one also has individual special pricing, but watch what happens when I change the order quantity up to 3 so that the group of these add up to 6. The price has changed again. We've been given a discount of 30% across all the items because of a promotion called Pick 6 that you can specify in Spire. You'll also see that there's a little bit of a warning that when those prices came up, you can also identify on inventory items or groups that if you want to make sure that your pricing hits a certain sales margin, then you make sure that you're not selling for items for too low. And you'll see that the margin has been highlighted in red. Throughout Spire, you'll see particular colors show up. You can add them to certain records if you want customers or vendors to pop or items. You'll see that there's notes or credit limits. There's lots of different areas in Spire where color will pop to give you warning and indication that something's important to take note of. So if we take a look at not only items you can load, but if you wanted to search something about the customer itself, again, you can see there's particular warnings about the customers you might want to identify, shipping addresses, billing information, what kind of credit limit. And then there's that price matrix that we just identified where you have particular items that have the special price. We saw those here. And then the Pick 6 discount. So there's different areas and different types of things you can do either for individual customers or for groups of customers or all customers in order to do special pricing for what you need. Maybe it's a sale price where you have a time limited special price. Lots of different choices. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to compact this list. Maybe you've finished entering the top part and you don't need that anymore, but you've got lots of different inventory that you want to add and you want to have it on screen, make it easy to see. Not only can you add individual items at a time, but you can also add groups of items. You can do this through one type of item in inventory called a kit. So I'm going to choose that, and you can see that a kit could represent a number of different items, and you can change those quantities if you want to search them, or if you might want to not include one of those particular items. So you can go through the list and pick which ones that you would like. And once you add that to our sales order, you can either have the kit description and then all of the individual items, or you can suppress those if you've got some extra room that you need to show, or you can even suppress all those individual items by toggling those kit components off. And so that will not print or otherwise show any of those individual components to the customer when you're doing sales order confirmations or invoicing. It just simply is the package itself, or you can turn that back on. So you do have the opportunity and some flexibility in how you want to present these items to your customers. And finally, of course, if you're not using the keyboard, many different times you actually want to select an item through a UPC code. And Spire supports the ability of doing scanning. What I'm going to do, I don't actually have a scanner attached to my particular computer, but if you understand that a scanner simply just reads the barcode and translates it into a value. And once I scan that item, it will get added to the list. And you'll see that not only did this item get added to the list, but it also included something in Spire we call an accessory. So if you purchase a particular item or sell a particular item, then it'll automatically include something else. Maybe there's a service charge or a labor expense that the customer incurs when they purchase that item. Just those things that you automatically include and you don't want to forget. In scanning, I could enter in another one. And of course, you've already added it once. So rather than updating a brand new record, it will just simply increment the order quantity. Of course, you can edit any of these things. If you realize I don't really want to ship 24 of those, you just want to change that a little bit, you can change and edit any of these items as well. Something else that you'll also identify, Spire maintains a lot of different information on orders, as we saw, but there might be that particular specific industry information that Spire doesn't have a specific field for. Spire maintains a number of user-defined fields, and you can tab those as you require in order to add that information that you need to track that doesn't have a specific field. Rather than using the tracking number in order to save a specific information, you can create the labels with the validation in regards to what you want to store. You can do that on transaction as a whole, or you can also do that on individual items themselves. You can specify columns that you want to show, and then you can have that information editable on the screen or selected. So there's lots of different abilities to customize your transactions, your records, in order to store the information that you actually require. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save this order, and you'll see that every time that you save or print a report regards to a transaction on a sales order, you're warned, are you sure you want to sell items below that sales margin? And then you can approve or continue on. We have a couple of items on back order. And what we're going to do is I'm going to change that to back order this. What's going to happen now is I want to actually identify that since we've got back order corners, we want to be able to fulfill those so that we can ship this order. And certainly I could save that and then send an email to the purchasing agent, understand that there's some information, some items that need to be ordered or produced. But what you can actually do in Spire is you can generate a requisition directly from the sales order in order to purchase or produce those items. And you'll see that for all of the items that are on the sales order, you'll see the required quantity, those that are on back order. If I don't really want to do this one quite now, I can turn that one off. It will skip all of the items that are 0, of course, and I can save that for the purchasing person in order to generate a purchase order or create a production order. Or if you have security rights, and sometimes that flexibility is necessary, you can immediately add these to the purchase order or to a new production order. And watch what happens when I click the process button, is that it generated a brand new purchase order, and you can see that directly from here, and a brand new production order. And in fact, not only did it add it on the requisition screen, but you'll see that it's added directly onto the sales order screen at the same time. So someone who's looking at the sales order will be able to immediately see that production order, that purchase order. And we'll come back to that in just a moment. You might want to add some notes to this order to remind yourself you've got a back order, or maybe there's something particular about the build that's special, or it's a custom order, so therefore there's some instructions that are involved. Spire in many different places, customers, vendors, items, accounts, transactions, have a communications tab where you can create notes. So for example, if I wanted to say back order to ship next week, I can give it a subject, lots of different text. I can assign it a due date. So maybe I want to make sure that it's done by the end of next week, assign a date. I can choose to assign it to myself or some other staff person. I can make it an alert so that it's much more obvious when it comes up on a screen, and save that as a note for later on. Something else I can also do is that you can do customer forms, of course. You might want to send an order confirmation or other sorts of communications through email to your customers. Spire has lots of different reports that you can print in different places, whether it's a printer toolbar button directly in the record, or there's also a tab that's available on some screens. There's over 200 reports in Spire that are customized for lists or for financial statements, all sorts of different things. Also specific forms as well that you would typically send to your customers. Here's a number of examples of sales order reports that are available. Here's an order confirmation that you might want to send prior to actually shipping. You can print or email or both those transaction reports or forms. I'm just going to choose to email because that's a little bit more interesting and a little bit more expected these days. It's just loading up the email now. There we go. It's just creating the transaction. Spire has built an email engine that you can associate either with a direct SMTP to your Gmail or your Outlook 365, or you can also integrate with another service such as SendGrid in order to maintain and manage those emails for you. When you send emails through Spire, you can send individual emails, and you can choose the person that you want to send to from a number of different areas. In the case of customers, it might be any of their contacts or specifically the person that's buying or receiving the order. There's other ship to records that you can maintain. You can also send in batches so that you can specify who the main contact is, and when you send a number of emails to various customers, it will generate a batch of emails and be able to individually send those to the specified person contact for each of the customers individually. There's carbon copy, blind carbon copy. As you'd expect in an email, you can type in a subject or and include attachments and format. But in Spire, of course, you don't want to be doing that for every different transaction. What you can do instead is select a template from the list. and you can generate a particular transaction. And when it comes time to actually loading the template, you can have information loaded from the form into the email that you send. Now, I'm actually going to send this directly because I'm sure this is just a sample data that I don't really actually want to create an error for. So I can do is I can just save that and send it later, perhaps as a group of emails at the end of the day. But certainly it is possible to send it right now. So I'm going to do is I'm just going to save this order. I'll come back to it in just a moment. And to identify that we just added that communication and that email. There's also different modules, as you can see on the left-hand side, where you can select different pieces of information and lists to load. And we can see that here's our back order that we just loaded from a communications list. If you want to be able to see due dates either for yourself or for other staff people, you can manage that. If you're a more visual person and you want to see these on a calendar, then Spire also opportunity gives you the ability to see information on calendars. And you can see the due dates that are associated in color based on the different user. So these are color coded by user. And you can go back through different months or years even if you want to identify tasks. Those emails that we sent are saved in an email list so that you can group those together either in individuals or in batches, as I identified before, so that you can track those emails and even resend them or just manage when you've done the communications with your customers through email. I'm just going to come back in and edit the order that we just identified. And not only do we have those alerts on the customer, but we also can show that, let's say that we've got transactions that and communications that we'll see those directly on the sales order itself here too. What I'm going to do now is to spend just a couple moments just to highlight the ability to create transactions from the sales order itself. So remember that we had a purchase order. We can load that purchase order number by loading the target. And if there's something about the purchase that we wanted to identify, we can see here it is. And we can identify if we're not the purchasing person, but just want to see, is it come in stock yet? Has it been received? What's the status? So we can let the customer know if they've want to get it shipped out real quick. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply receive that. I'm not worried about the vendor invoice, but certainly you can generate a vendor invoice at the same time as the receipt in order to send that to payables. So for just the demonstration, I'm just going to leave that, do the accounting. Many different places in Spire, there are reports that are associated with posting a transaction just to identify, in this case, that inventory has been received. There's lots of important reports that can pop to remind you that you need to do them at the time that you need to do them. So now that I've received that in stock, I can actually fulfill that back order. You can see that that back order now has been reduced and now we're shipping it. In the case of a production order, something that you produce using recipes, ingredients, building the stock with parts, you can load a different type of order called a production order. And we'll see here what this is you've got a particular template and all the different ingredients or parts that are associated with this production item. And you'll see that there's all these green dots, which identifies that there's enough in stock to do this build. It'll even tell you how many you can build. You can see we can do 327. So if I were to change that number to say 400, something bigger, then you see that we're no longer able to build this. And instead, you can see which are the parts, which are the ingredients, the materials that are preventing you from being able to do this build. And you can actually do a requisition from here, say I need to get these particular ingredients in order to fulfill this. I'll just put that back to 1. Once we change that quantity, we're all green. I'm going to go ahead and build this. There are some serial numbers and lot numbers associated with these ingredients. So when I build this, I'll have to fulfill and withdraw from the inventory on hand, the particular lot number, so we can trace that. And I'll generate a new item for a lot number for this particular thing that we're building. And we've generated that and successfully done that. Of course, another report might pop up. And I can fulfill that as well too. Not only can I fulfill that, oops. All right. Oh, I know I have to do it. Because it's a serial number, I have to fulfill it from the serial number. So my mistake, sorry about that. So now that we'll see that it's no longer in back order and we're shipping. So at this point now, what I'd like to do is to identify also that there might be different work order procedures that you might have. You might process this to generate a packing slip, or sorry, a pick list and a packing slip. And then when you're ready to invoice, it will save the order. You can either save it on account. So if they have terms and they only have to pay in 30 days, you can choose to save on account as long as they have available credit. If this customer was over their credit limit, you'd see this green would be red, and then you have the opportunity of identifying, well, there's something that's interesting. Maybe you'll have to prevent shipping this order right away until they've paid up, or maybe you'll override that so that because this customer is special. You have flexibility in how you do this. If you choose to take payment on the invoice at the same time, maybe you have terms that don't allow on account, you can force them to say accept the check or cash, which also includes penny rounding. You can also integrate with credit cards and many different other ways. Spire also has integration possibilities with credit cards that are vaulted, so that instead of having to rekey the information into your credit card provider processor in a separate entry, you can have this all happen in one step. So you can securely vault these with a credit card provider, and you can do either for a full or I'll do a partial payment. And this will go ahead and generate a vaulted transaction directly with a credit card processor. So you don't have to key this. I partially paid this. Spire also allows me to do split tenders, so that if I wanted to say, well, they're going to be putting a deposit on Visa and the rest of it will be by cash or by a different credit card or a debit card, then you can have multiple payment types available on a single sales order, a single transaction. So this is something that's very flexible, and that's just real life. For the purposes of this demo, I'll just keep this partially paid, and I will post the rest of it to account. So that will capture that payment. I could email the invoice if I wanted to. I won't worry about that for right now. And then we saved that sales order. You see, it's no longer off the list. It's been saved actually in sales history. If I wanted to come back and take a look at this later, if I wanted to re-email this, if the customer required it, if I want to do some inquiry about something, about this order, the invoice is saved in a historical place. Because we saved this on account, let's move over into the accounting side of Spire. And we've just created an invoice with a balance outstanding. Spire allows you to see all of the outstanding receivables on a list, only showing the customers that actually owe you something or have an outstanding transaction. This is really helpful if you've got thousands of customers and maybe only a few actually only owe you money. So you have the opportunity of seeing which ones those are, and you can see how old those transactions are. In case of sample data, you can see that they're all pretty old. Let's just take a look at the customer that we have here. And we can see that we have transactions with a balance, and we have the opportunity of selecting invoices, and we can pay them. We can also generate a number of different types of transactions, don't require customer forms. Maybe it's just a charge that you want to put on record, but you don't actually need to send them an email like an invoice, or if you want to log a payment on file. You can also just simply highlight a record and click the payment button, and it will show the invoices that you want to pay. You can pay it by the same ways, whether it's a cash or Visa or all the different types of payment methods that Spire supports that you create. And then you can identify, let's just do a check, put in the check number, and we can go ahead and post that. Now we can see it's off of the list. And if we want to actually see that, we can actually show all the transactions, including those that are paid. And if we highlight this, then we can see the invoice and associated payments. You see there's other different areas where you can see if there's particular notes about the customer due to their payment history or notes about their payable person. There's lots of different flexibility as far as tracking that information. Let me highlight a couple of other things that you can do in Spire in regards to the accounts receivable. You see that this particular customer shows it has a zero balance, so we're wondering why that's actually there. And what actually the case is that there is an invoice and a payment that offset exactly to zero, but they haven't been associated with each other. Perhaps there was a deposit and then a payment later on. In Spire, rather than having to create a brand new transaction, you have the opportunity of just simply selecting both of those and clicking the apply button and link those together. And I could actually see those if I wanted to identify that. There's that 226 and they're linked together. Or let's say that you've associated a payment with an invoice, but you made a mistake and you paid the wrong invoice. So in this case, you can see we've got invoice for 3307, and we've got applied to the second invoice when it really should have gone to the first one. It's really easy to make that change. You don't have to recreate reversing entries and reapply those. All you have to do is unapply that. Now it's completely unlinked, and now you can choose the right ones and apply them together. So there's some flexibility with that. In addition to the accounts receivable, of course, you also have to pay bills sometimes. And so accounts payable has a kind of a similar situation where you can have invoices to pay, and you can go ahead and pay them individually if you wish by the different methods that you choose to pay. However, typically you'll be doing groups of payments at once, whether it's a batch of checks or you're doing electronic fund transfer. And what you can do in Spire with the accounts payable is you can create a batch. And that will generate a list of transactions based on specifications that you can filter. You can see that there are some red ones that are overdue, and there are some that are black that aren't due yet. And you can specify different due dates. So let me just put in a due date and reload those. And so there will no longer be those that have due dates before that. I could choose to pay those by printing checks, or I can choose, instead of doing printed checks, I can do an electronic fund transfer and load those, only those that have provided banking information that you can actually do the electronic transfer. And so I can choose to pay all those if I want, or if I realize, no, I don't actually want to pay that 135,000, I can change the payment amount on the screen, on the fly, and see what my total payment amount will be. I can view an invoice if I wanted to say, well, I'm interested in what that purchase was about. You can actually drill down to invoices. And when I'm satisfied with the payment, I can go ahead and post those. In the case of electronic fund transfer, you'll go back to your bank account and choose your payment processor layout that you specify with your bank and the date that it's supposed to come out of your bank, whether it's today or maybe you can future process it. And that will generate the file. And then you can also send email directly to all those vendors to identify that their payment is coming. And I can go ahead and email that as a batch as identified because you have multiple vendors that we're doing too. I'm not going to worry about that for now. And then there's some accounting to do depending on how you specify whether the information comes directly out of your bank account on an individual check basis or as a group. In this particular case, I do it as groups, and so therefore there's some accounting that needs to happen. Now, when I refresh this list, we have a lot fewer payables outstanding, and that's great. That's what we want to hope for. Let's move into the general ledger. In addition to your chart of accounts, where you don't necessarily visit too often, but you might want to see your debit and credit balances, and you can see outstanding net changes throughout months. Perhaps often you'll come here because you want to search for a particular transaction. Of course, you could use your scroll bar button, but you might have thousands or tens of thousands of transactions to scroll through. Instead, you can use specified filters if you want to generate a specific account type or account number. You can also search through individual columns using what we call in Spire Smart Search Box. So maybe I want to search for the entity of that customer number that we just had. So we have that customer entity that it searched for. Maybe I only want to search for invoices. So now it's been limiting the list to just invoices. Or if you happen to know the invoice number, and what was it? Okay, you could actually do wildcard searching too. So the invoice number, and I can't remember what that last digit is, and so you can see that information here being listed on the document number. I can drill down to see the balance GL entry, including all the accounts and all the amounts. And I can even also view the source invoice or purchase or transaction where that came from. So you have the ability of drilling all the way down to the source transaction without having to go searching for it. Spire does that flexibility and a functionality for you. One other type of transaction process that you might do in Spire in regards to your GL accounts is a bank reconciliation. You can reconcile not only banks, but other accounts as well, whether it's a clearing account or a credit card account. You can just check off transactions as you need. But one that you typically would do is through your banks. And if you have a bank account set up and you're doing a reconciliation, you can see all the list of previous bank reconciliations that you've done in the past. And so if you need to reprint one, it's very easy to do. And if you create a new one, you probably will have a bank statement that's sitting before you that will have a date. Let me just identify the date, backdate it a little bit. And this date will identify which transaction shows. So it will not show any post-dated transactions, unless you choose to show them, but you can turn that off. I can go ahead and reconcile those off of my manual bank statement if I wanted to, or I could pick them all. I'm going to put in my bank statement balance, 916, 128.82. So once I show in my closing balance, you can see how many transactions and the net amount that needs to be reconciled up to my ending date. I could do it manually, or Spire also supports doing an import. And you can see the list of all of my transactions that are in Spire up to my ending date. And I can browse for this. And I have to remember where I saved it. Actually, I'm going to do my downloads, my bank statements. Here's my May 31st. So Spire automatically matched all of those that had the same date and an amount or a date within 14 days. If those amounts are the same and you know those are correct, but maybe the dates are different, you can see this happened 5/20, so they took them a little bit while to cache that. I can just select those and match that up. Something that's also really cool is you have the opportunity of matching up those bank charges, those bank interest fees or interest income directly from the list. You don't have to create brand new transactions because you don't expect what those amounts are going to be necessarily, especially interest. So I can highlight on the list, do a bank fee, and it will generate the transaction and match it up. Or if this is an interest transaction, you have an interest, match it up. Once I've cleared off my imported bank statement, you can see that my variance is now 0. Those are all identified, and I can either post this now or I can save that for later in case there's some other information I need to identify before we actually reconcile. How are we doing for time? Okay. One last thing in the general ledger, not only do you maintain the transactions, but you also want to plan. And Spire has a budgets and forecasts module. Oops. It's a little bit slow here. There you go. So Spire has a budgets and forecast module where you can maintain 2 different types of budgets, either budgets that you maintain at the beginning of the year, or maybe forecasts that you can modify throughout the year, and you can show or hide them as necessary. And you can see that there's color coding on the actual amounts, whether it's green or yellow or red. So Spire will tell you right away whether you're over your budget. So in this case, you've got a budget amount and an actual that's exceeded that, that's good, so it's green. Or in an expense or a revenue account, you're not quite at that budget yet, so it's yellow. In the case of expenses, maybe I want to show an expense accounts. We haven't exceeded our expense budget for this account, so that's great. But this one we have, so therefore it's showing red. So there's something that you have to identify. And you can see that not only for a full year, but you can also see those for individual months as well. If you change an amount on a yearly account, you can change that and the information, oops, one more extra 0. And you can see that those numbers automatically get coded right away and automatically calculate for the individual months. Or you can edit an individual monthly budget or forecast. So you have opportunities to maintain your budgets directly from here for a single account, or there's also an import budget process if you're maintaining all of your expenses or groups at a time. And finally, before I hand this back off to Katie, I just want to identify also that Spire has an optional Canadian payroll. So if you want to maintain your payroll for your employees and print out forms for them like their T4s, records of employment, those sorts of things that you'd expect in a payroll program, you have the opportunity of maintaining that directly in Spire. And in fact, you can also have those integrate with email if you're doing direct deposit. I'm just going to do a very quick pay card, time card batch. I just identify what that might look like. So let's say that I'm doing and specifying the time cards for the end of this month, October 31st. I can do by pay frequency. Maybe it's just my monthly or my semi-monthly employees, or all of them, or particular departments. Maybe I'm just doing my admin people first and then other people later, or I can add them all. And Spire, it allows you to do salary employees, or perhaps you can do hourly employees as well. Whichever those employees are, they have those pay codes automatically defined. You might have different benefits or deductions that also come alongside, and all the different taxes and withholdings that are associated, of course, with customers, with your employees. If you want to add new pay codes, for example, if maybe there's some overtime, you can add that and on the fly and change those amounts. I can post that. I can export this to an EFT if you're doing direct deposit to your employees instead of printing checks, which is pretty typical these days. And then when you're ready, you can post those. Well, let's post them all. And then if you're choosing to email a slip to them to identify that the payments come through, or you can print checks if that's what you're doing instead, I can then either email or print those as necessary. I'm not going to worry about that for now. And then we've got a posted time card patch. So you can see there's lots of different modules and there's lots of flexibility. And to identify that you can specify which employees and which staff can access different things. There's the reports if you have a reports tab. So there's different areas where you can identify. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass this back to Katie. And thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. So just going to go over here. Warren, I just wish that we had all the time in the world in order to be able to go over everything that Spire can do. I mean, there's, filtered reports where you can enter specific parameters within every module that you saw there, ladies and gentlemen, really adding the ability to have flexible reporting by user. Those reports can be shared throughout the organization. Spire also comes in 3 languages, English, French, and Spanish on a user basis as well. We didn't even touch the job cost module for small construction companies who might be interested. We didn't dive into the full customers and vendors and requisitions and price matrix. We just touched on just a little bit of everything for you. So we would be here all day if we were, maybe more than a day, I think. So just as a reminder, I know that some of you raised your hands throughout the presentation. So please just add your questions to a little question box that you'll see in your GoToWebinar panel over there, and then that will help us. Definitely get back to you after the webinar in order to answer your questions. So I just want to minimize this over here. Here we go. I do want to ask our friends in the audience just a question here. I was wondering, what is the most important thing to you when you're shopping for software? So you should see a poll in front of you right there. Is it how friendly the user interface is? Is it having a fully integrated system, so not managing multiple systems? Is it contemporary technology, something that is keeping up with the pace of software out there? Is it how affordable it is? Is it how much it will help you grow? How scalable is it for you? So I see that you guys are entering some responses. That's great. I appreciate that. I think one of the things I love so much is the Google-like search. You saw Warren add an asterisk to the query that he was making. Spire's search is so powerful that that's what we call it, is like a Google-like search. So within any of those modules that we saw today, you can ask half of a question, a wildcard question, and Spire will pull up anything and everything that has to do with that. I mean, the email functionality is amazing. There's so many great things. Colors are important. Our eyes are totally drawn to colors. And then the fact that you can be very keyboard centric. I mean, for those of you who are taking in orders at, a multitude level, the mouse is a great browsing tool. It's not a good data entry tool, right? So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll here. And I see that many of you are looking for a fully integrated system. Contemporary technology is somewhat important to you, and friendly user interface. So there's a lot going on your Spire screen there. I'll tell you what my mentor told me, and there's truth to it, is that every system is user friendly when the user becomes friendly with the system. Warren, that sounds familiar to you, I'm sure. So keep in mind, there's a lot of training resources that are available for you. But when you are shopping for software, there are 4 main areas that you want to consider, and some of those are indeed the technology aspect of it, right? And so that is one area. And what does that mean? Does the technology force you to one model, like I was talking about earlier, or do you have options in terms of the type of technology you're going to run the software on? Or how contemporary is it? Is this a product that does have releases throughout the course of the year where features are enhanced, or where known issues get addressed and fixed? Or is it just not being developed, staying where it's at, not really offering you any kind of competitive advantage. Another area that you want to consider is productivity. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about learning, the learning curve. How long is it going to take your team to get on board or to be equally, if not more productive than you were before that? And so great training resources are important. A consultant who's going to hold your hand and understand that everyone learns differently and help to prioritize that implementation project so that the learning curve is absorbed as these different phases of a new system are being implemented. So think about that. How long is it going to take you to be equally, if not more productive? The goal is more. That's probably why some of you are wanting to change software. And features and functionalities. So often when I'm speaking with people who are shopping for software, I try to help them identify the must-haves, the need to have, and the wish I had. So your must-haves are what you have now that you absolutely cannot live without. Your need to have is what do you not have that you need to have in a new system, or else what's the point in looking at a new system? And then the I wish I could have. And this often falls into the automation kind of category, or flexibility kind of things that I just wish I had that made my job easier. And the reality is if we had all the money in the world, all of this could happen. And then the value. So these are the four main pillars. And the value is what is the it's not just the dollar amount that you're paying, right? It's what is the usable lifetime value of the software versus the actual costs of the software. And when we say actual costs, folks understand that there are hidden costs, and there are hidden costs in what you're doing today, and there are hard costs as well. So what does that value mean to you? In the handouts section of your GoToWebinar panel, you'll see an evaluation checklist. It should be there as a PDF for you that you are able to download. It dives into these four pillars more in depth, asking you some questions, and there's some columns that allow you to evaluate Spire versus maybe 2 or 3 other products that you're considering when you're shopping for a new software. If for whatever reason you can't download that there, we will include it in a follow-up email post-webinar. So one thing I want you to understand is that there's no software out there that's going to do absolutely everything you need it to do, unless you are building a custom application or paying somebody a lot of money to build that custom application. But most solid accounting and business management solutions will serve businesses extremely well. It'll cover a lot of the basics and more of what you need. But at Spire, we understand that there are companies out there that sometimes need industry-specific solutions, and it may not be just industry-specific, it may also be process-specific. And so we have what is very well known to our channel members here as a resting API, and that allows you to nicely integrate with other products. Our API documentation is available online. You can find that. But we've also partnered with some of these great names that you see here on your screen who offer, whether it's CRM or warehouse management or document management, credit card processing, in-depth reporting, WYSIWYG reporting, CRMs. I mean, I could go on forever. E-commerce integrations, right? I mean, these are all added values that you may need for your business. And so you can find their information also on our website. But wherever you're coming from, Spire in our inception was the most natural and organic upgrade to an older product that you see there on your screen. And that will always remain true for us. We will always be the most organic, natural upgrade path for said product. Some of you in the audience today might be using that product. But we are also now able to convert data from QuickBooks Desktop, making us a really nice solution for those entry-level package users to really consider Spire. But at the end of the day, regardless of the package that you're coming from, our certified consultants will work with you to help bring over as much of your data as possible. We understand that data migration and having access to your history is hugely important. So what does it mean to be a Spire client, to be part of the Spire community? What kind of an investment are you looking at? So you're generally starting in the $2,000 range, in the $7,000 range, excuse me. You can add users incrementally to that. The subscription model will start in the $300 range. And the annual software assurance, this is what I was talking about earlier today in the webinar, where that mobile application is included for you, is at about 20% of the retail value a year. Now, again, you will work with a certified and authorized consultant who they also have their service fees for you, and they're the ones who would provide you with a final proposal on a Spire investment. But I'm here to be able to offer you a free, no obligation discovery call. I did recognize some of the names in the audience today that I have had a chance to sit down with. So if you do want to just understand a little bit more if Spire is a good fit for you, you're more than welcome to connect with me. And then we'll eventually connect you with a certified partner who can also give you a demo. Now, we're just running out of time, but I want to share one message with you guys from our founding partners before we let you go. And the final screen will have my contact information there for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, please just take a minute to watch this short, less than 3-minute video.
Quality of software is very important, because if you don't maintain that quality and you make a sale to a customer for your software and they're not happy with something that goes wrong, their reputation is harmed. So the quality has to be stellar. My name is Al Romaine, and I'm a CEO of Spire Systems.
Our first hopes for Spire was to solve business problems. We saw that there were significant needs that businesses had that weren't available, and we had a passion for helping businesses do things better, be more efficient. We saw a space for what we could provide. My name is Peter Reimer. I work for Spire Systems, and I'm the Chief Operations Officer.
Our hopes for Spire when we founded it was to be able to have a great mid-range product that businesses could afford and not have to pay these exorbitant amounts for these high-end systems, or the fact they've probably outgrown a lot of smaller systems, and we needed to fit a niche in there that would fit for the kind of small, medium-sized businesses. And we wanted it to be great software, even though it was not as pricey as some of the high-end stuff out there.
I feel that Spire has become successful because we understand that we only create the software. We work together with a partner channel to bring the product to the market, work with the companies that are using Spire to bring everything back full circle, respond to what the needs of the Spire community is. None of this would have worked with us alone.
We've created a set of core values that we've asked everybody who works for us and everybody who sells our software to abide by. And it happens. It just is great. We hire by it, and we write our software by it, and we stick to those core values. Sustainable.
Progressive.
Integrity.
Respect.
And excellence.
Great, folks. Thanks so much for sharing your time with us here today. I do appreciate it. You can check us out some more at www.spiresystems.com, and my email address is kgriffin@spiresystems.com. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much for sharing your precious time with us. Warren, great job on the demonstration. I really appreciate working with you as always, and have a great day, everyone. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.